Happy Lunar New Year. Is everyone ready to pony up for the year of the fire horse? I sure am. This is a mundane astrology reading. I use tropical astrology and what I also call dynamic Yi Jing astrology, where I synthesize the Yi Jing and also Chinese astrology with tropical astrology. Chinese astrology is very complicated. I don't know it. I specialize in tropical or Western astrology. So it's very different, but it's interpreting kind of the archetypes and the mysticism from Chinese astrology through the lens of tropical astrology. So it's kind of a blend of what I know with what I don't know, which is fun. Um, so we can, there are 12 zodiac signs in Chinese astrology, and they correspond to entire years, the lunar year. And we can correspond them to the 12 signs of the zodiac. So the first sign, Aries, represents the first house, and the first sign of the Chinese zodiac is the rat. The second sign in the zodiac is Taurus, and it just so coincides with the year of the ox in Chinese astrology. Gemini corresponds to the tiger. Cancer corresponds to the rabbit. That's my Chinese zodiac, the rabbit. Leo corresponds to the dragon, very fitting. Virgo to the snake. Libra to the horse. Scorpio to the goat. We are the greatest of all time. Sagittarius to the monkey. Capricorn to the rooster. Aquarius to the dog. And Pisces to the pig. So we're entering a Libra year, which is the year of the horse, the fire horse. And there's a lot of fire energy going on for the sign or the chart rather corresponding to the Chinese New Year, which takes place on 8:01 p.m. on the 17th, Beijing time. That's 7:01 here in Eastern time in the morning. So tomorrow morning at about 7:01 is when the new moon is occurring and marks the new year. Whenever a new or a full moon occurs by the North Node, so this new moon is occurring at 28 degrees Aquarius, and the nodes are currently at 8 degrees Pisces. So it's in with 10 degrees, and when that happens, when we have an eclipse and we have a solar eclipse at the same time in parts of the world. So it's a very powerful New Year. Horse is a very powerful sign, corresponds to Libra, which deals in fairness, equity, justice, partnerships, both political and romantic. So Libra is the house of justice and fairness. And hopefully, mundane astrology talks about the world and stuff like that. Hopefully, the world is getting towards a more just and equitable society. We can all hope for that. Um, for this chart, we have a big stellium going on, so a lot of planets in the sixth house, which we can understand is governed by Virgo or the snake in Chinese astrology. And that stellium is mostly in Pisces, which corresponds to the pig. Um, the sixth house deals with establishing daily routines and flow. It's about really figuring out life's rhythm. What is the best rhythm we can have for ourselves to promote a lot of peace or Zen in our lives and reach states of like happiness and nirvana with different aspects of our lives and when laughing with other people and how do we incorporate healthy routines and a healthy flow of our life to promote, these ecstatic states and reaching what it means to live our life to the fullest. Um, this year brings about great change, which it has a very strong conjunction of Saturn and Neptune at 0 degrees Aries at the portal, the very beginning of the zodiac. So the stellium kind of reaches up. There's this line of planets all near each other through the sixth and seventh house. And that 0 degrees conjunction in Aries happens to be in the seventh house, which would be ruled by Libra or the horse. So this is occurring in the house of the horse. Uh, so it's a very powerful planetary thing we got going on. Um, I think China, especially if they look to be more on the global stage. If you look at Jupiter in the 10th house in Cancer, the 10th house speaks to the global stage, like taking a kind of role model lead. in terms of daily life and how do we establish, a globally friendly and abundant capitalism that is sustainable and equitable. Labor laws are not that great in China compared to the United States. They do a lot of manufacturing. And how do we create a global capitalism where this abundance is shared and we have an equal distribution of labor and we create systems to minimize the amount of labor we need to put into them? And also take into account stuff such as like resources running out and climate change. It's very disputed here in America. I'm not sure how it's disputed in China, but to me, there's no dispute that these resources we're using to fuel capitalism, whether it's transport and trucks and planes and cars, um, we're using these finite fuels that will eventually run out. And coal powers our electrical grid here. Um, And a lot of what we depend on for our daily lives and to get to the grocery store is all uses these resources that are, finite. And politically, China's been in the news lately for having, rare earths access and kind of being in charge of the distribution of that. And so I think China, probably more than any other country, is very aware of climate change and resource allocation and the depletion of resources in the world. And so I think in terms of like innovation and, a capacity and capability to innovate and rebuild, I think, China can really lead the globe in terms of, building sustainable frameworks, for capitalism, uh, with respect to how resources are finite and scarce and build, supply and demand and scarcity models based on an abundant, fair distribution of resources throughout the world. We can end disparity capitalism, and China being so integral to capitalism can really lead the way on role modeling, what does an ethical capitalism look like? And I think that these planetary alignments speak to that kind of possibility. Um, And Saturn brings about like karma, fairness, justice, breakthroughs, and destruction. And Neptune rules over illusions and mystery and spirituality. And so, with this powerful placement in the 0 degrees Aries, we're looking at the destruction of illusions, destruction of propaganda, the illusions brought out by pop propaganda and narratives, a really destruction of what holds us back from seeing the truth and understanding the truth and realizing the truth. We're going to see a lot of that in the coming year, which I think is really exciting. I think the more we disengage from the illusions that perpetuate this kind of corrupted status quo that hurts us all, and we tune in more to the truth, the better off we are. And this year, the year of the fire horse is a great year to really bring about the destruction of these illusions and these barriers that hold us all back as a society. Um, so the sun and the moon are conjunction for the new moon at 28 degrees Aquarius, which can symbolize the dog in Chinese astrology. Um, in the Yi Jing, it corresponds to hexagram 30, which is fire, and the fifth yin. Um, so hexagram 30 is fire over fire. And the fifth yin pertains to progress is certain, weeping and lamenting, there is good fortune. So to me, this speaks to a necessary catharsis. If we can bring about a world where happiness and joy and abundance is shared, there's the catharsis for, how difficult times have been and how hard it was to get to that place. And so in this fifth line, fifth yin, it there has to be a necessary destruction and catharsis of what's been holding us back and what's bad and kind of getting rid of that energy before we can emerge to enjoy the good fortune and to enjoy the great abundance that comes after, is what I think this speaks to. Another prominent conjunction we have is Venus and North Node conjunct in Pisces at 8 degree Pisces. It corresponds to hexagram 37, which is people in the home, and fourth yang. And the hexagram 37 is wind over fire. In human design, it's called the gate of friendship or the hexagram of friendship. The fourth yang reads, a rich home is very fortunate, producing wealth in the right way. And this goes back to where I think China can really lead the globe on sustainable manufacturing, sustainable capitalism, sustainable living. Here in America, we tend to take for granted kind of the basics, food and utilities, and that to me is the real wealth. You can have toys or robots or whatever, but these things are fads. They're passing. The real wealth is in having your food and having your shelter needs met and having your utilities. That to me is the true abundance, and guaranteeing that as a standard for everyone on the globe, that is a true shared abundance. Um, and so I think this North Node in the sixth house is kind of just points to the capability of China to like lead the way and, role modeling on what is abundance, what is wealth, and how can we have it more equitably and enjoy things more sustainably. Our systems may very well be crashing. How do we quickly innovate new systems to replace them? And what do those new systems look like so that they don't get us into the same problems we find ourselves in today? And then the 0 degrees Aries conjunction with Saturn and Neptune, that's in hexagram 25, heaven over thunder. So no error is the name of the hexagram. And it's the third yin. And this speaks a bit of misfortune. It says the misfortune of no error. A tethered cow is a gain for a traveler and a misfortune for the local people. So I think this speaks to, when people try to change the world for good, when we try to do good things in the world, even if it is for the greater benefit or, for the greatest number, people will still see it as a detriment. You can't change things without some people suffering in some way, those who control the systems and benefit the most from them as they are now. Like, most people here in America and the other powers that be around the world that benefit the most from, the corrupted, uh, exploitative capitalism that we have. Um, Making that change, forcing that change, hopefully this conjunction in Aries can kind of do that. That will be at an ultimate detriment to some people who benefit from it now, but that detriment can be temporary. It can be overcome because I think we are all better off in an equitable world, in a world that gets rid of exploitation. Um, and just a byproduct of this kind of corrupted society we live in. We're atrophying our brains with scrolling and so much overstimulation and not enough authentic and genuine connection with each other. And this year really can mark a paradigm shift to where we can have more authentic connections with each other. So, thank you so much for tuning in. I hope you have an auspicious new year. Happy Year of the Fire Horse. My name is Holly. I'm the Oracle of Delray, and I appreciate you joining me today. Thank you. If you liked my video, please consider donating me a tip on Cash App. My cash tag is CoffeeCrow420. Thank you.